Hello and welcome to Talking Aussie Books, a weekly podcast bringing readers and writers of Australian fiction together. I'm Claudine Tinellis. As an avid reader and passionate advocate for Australian fiction, I make it my mission to spotlight local talent. So if you're looking for your next read or simply want to learn more about the Australian literary scene, this podcast is for you. Grab yourself a cuppa, sit back and relax. Today, listeners, we're mixing things up a little. I'm coming to you from the Sydney Distribution Centre of Australia's largest online book retailer and distributor, Booktopia, where I am joined by author, podcaster and content creator Nick Wasiliev. Hi Nick, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Very happy to be here on Talking Aussie Books.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you. Now, for those of you who don't know, Nick works for Booktopia as a senior content producer, and he also produces and hosts the popular Booktopia podcast, Tell Me What to Read. And today we're going to delve into the world of books, the trends Booktopia has seen in the last couple of years, what upcoming titles we're excited about, along with a bit about Booktopia's publishing arm. Gosh, Nick, you're a busy man.
Oh, God. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But yes, it's busy times. It's crazy times at Booktopia at the moment, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, for listeners out there, I just had a wonderful little tour of the distribution centre, and I'll post some pictures up on my socials about that. But a very, very cool place. So, Nick, I wanted to ask you, how did you first become involved in publishing? Was it your role here in Booktopia, or had you worked elsewhere in publishing?
Well, I've always loved writing, from a young age. So I was very lucky that I came from a family of journalists. My father, he works at the Financial Review. He's worked there for 50-something years. My mother is a journalist as well. She's also an excellent writer on her own. So I grew up loving books and enjoying books so much and the power of the written word. And so it was always a goal from, when I was 3 or 4, sitting in my dad's office while he was working, that I would one day publish a book and publish something and write something. So in 2019, I did that. I published my debut book, which I did it self-publishing. When you're kind of learning and making a book for the first time, I was lucky to work with a group called Lime Books that are based in Chatswood, and they helped me with my first version of the book. And then following that, I was kind of applying for roles in the industry, hoping to try and get a foot in the door, and Booktopia said, hey, we love how enthusiastic you are for books, and yes, there's a lot to learn, but we would love you to come on and be a member of our team working in our social media space. And I said, absolutely. So I joined in January 2020, and I've been here ever since, and I love it. It's a huge amount of fun.
I can tell. You've always got a big smile on your face. You talk passionately about your work here, which I absolutely love. So what would you say is the best thing about working for Booktopia?
Oh my God, that is almost an impossible question. I think, well, actually, no, it's not. The people you get to meet. So, we're recording this here in our studio, and we were talking, earlier about the people who've come through the door. You get to meet so many interesting people, not just necessarily, authors and people who are known within the book industry themselves, but celebrities come through with their autobiographies, and internationally renowned chefs come through with their cookbooks, and you get to meet people from all walks of life and sit down, talk to them, have conversations with them. It is endlessly fascinating, the people that you get to chat to and get to meet.
I can imagine it would be. And we were just going through the distribution centre a bit before, and I just saw a big box of Karen Martini's new book.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
Yes.
I would love to meet Karen Martini.
Yes.
Or Nigella Lawson.
Yep, she's coming in to sign some copies of books at the time of recording. Probably by the time you're listening to this, the signed copies will already be available for purchase, or for pre-order. So get along with that. But yeah, you get all sorts of people. We had Michael Robotham in. We had, of course, we were talking about Danny V, mutual podcast acquaintance.
Indeed.
As well, who was in here last week signing copies of her new kids' book. But you get everyone through the door. Everybody, every person under the sun. There are some people that I would love to meet. We had Neil Gaiman come in once, and this was before my time. And every time I've seen the photographs, I just went, that's not fair. That's not fair. I want to meet him so badly. But yeah, you do get some incredible people.
And it's become a bit of a thing now for authors to be able to come to Booktopia and sign their books here in your signing room. I mean, I think it's like #goals.
I've been hearing that more and more. I just run the room. I just help out running with the running of the day-to-day of the room. But increasingly, authors have come in and said, oh my God, I'm here. I've made it. I've hit the moment where there's a pile of books on that desk. I'll never, ever take it for granted. I always love when authors come in. Like, we've had so many reactions of people who've come through that door, who, people have burst into tears. The fact that they've seen, 400 of their books, of their babies really, sitting on the table ready for them to sign that they've worked on for so long. Yeah. We've had authors who, have done 15, 20 books come in and be like, still gets me every time. Love it. I love the fact that we have this little room here and we have this little space. And I love that authors love coming here. It makes us super happy. We love having authors back. Yeah. There was a period of time when, the pandemic was going, we weren't able to have people in the room, but now we can. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, that was a terrific segue into my next question. I think it's fair to say that there's been a shift in focus for many Australians over the last couple of years due to COVID. So I wanted to ask you, Nick, how did that shift manifest itself in changes to book buying habits from Booktopia's point of view?
Well, it was an interesting couple of years, to put it mildly. And I'm in a unique situation on this because I didn't really get the chance to experience, because I joined in January 2020. So I didn't really get the chance to, experience the traditional sort of year of books, because in March we were in lockdown. Yeah. And all of the bricks and mortar stores that, are such a key foundational part of the industry weren't able to actually sell books to people because you couldn't physically go out there, which had a huge impact on the industry. But people's tastes changed and a lot of people moved to the online space and bought books from us. When people first thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, fiction went crazy because people were like, oh, here's a great opportunity to read that fiction book I've always wanted to read. Then when everyone realized, oh, this is going to be longer, then non-fiction started becoming popular. So people started looking at hobbies, at self-help books, at all sorts of stuff. When, massive events happened. So I think, in 2020, there was all of the civil unrest in America. Yeah. People started researching about that, and books around that subject matter went absolutely crazy. And now we've come out the other side of it. There's a lot of self-help books going around at the moment, as well as hobbies. People went nuts for baking.
Sourdough,
home DIY. Because you're sitting at home, you've been living at home for the past 2 years. You finally go, you know what? Maybe I should make that porch that I've been wanting to make for so many years. But at the moment, there are two big growths that are happening right now, and I've been chatting with one of my colleagues, Sarah McDouling, about it. But I've also been lucky enough, being able to go back into a couple of actual bookstores. Thank God they're finally open again, which is great. And so one of the big things, of course, is graphic novels have gone absolutely nuts over the last, couple of months or so. Additionally, manga. People have really become interested in kind of in terms of visual books, visual storytelling, kind of that sort of space. There are so many fantastic books out there. I mean, I grew up, with classics like V for Vendetta and there is a certain type of storytelling in that, the combination of not just the words, but the actual artwork as well. It's kind of similar to children's books. They have to work together in tandem with the storytelling. There's such a huge interest in graphic novels right now, which is really interesting and really fantastic to see. And it's great to see that particular form of art is actually, people are interested in it. And then the other one that we're really seeing right now, which will come as no surprise to you whatsoever, this thing called BookTok. Yes. So are you on TikTok? Have you seen...
I am on TikTok, but I just refuse to dance or lip sync. I'm sorry. It's just not me.
Well, at the moment, it's kind of seeing, the interests and tastes of the younger reading audience on BookTok is absolutely insane. And it is leading to, real huge change that we're seeing in the industry at large. So if you essentially get onto... your book becomes a major BookTok title. So we're talking Taylor Jenkins Reid, Colleen Hoover, Emily Henry. There's been a huge growth in romance, in fantasy, and YA off the back of BookTok. And to give you a sense of how much this area is cooking, in May of this year, there was 40 billion plays of BookTok on TikTok. The total 40 billion videos on BookTok. By now, it's 60 billion.
Wow.
That's how nuts it's going right now. So BookTok is really driving a huge amount of interest in romance, in YA, in fantasy, being absolutely huge for booksellers. Seeing, the interest in those particular genres grow, especially from, younger audiences. Yeah. Your early 20s, teenage to early 20s, that YA space is growing, and it's fantastic to see, people of that age really get into books like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Just would be nice if we get that BookTok phenomenon happening for Australian titles.
Well, look, there is some. I think you'd be surprised. There'll be some that people will take an interest in. I think that a lot more Australian authors are starting to make their way onto that space.
Yeah.
And, and increasingly as we become more, authors become a little bit more savvy and know like, okay, this is how you can play and have some fun with the actual space itself. I reckon we'll start to see more interest in that space. Watch it. It's an interesting place. It's where a lot of exciting things are happening in the book publishing world right now.
Yeah, certainly from what I can see, there are a lot of Australian authors who are trying to make the move onto TikTok, you know. But I don't know that anybody really understands why some books take off on BookTok and others don't.
Well, I think often it can be driven by multiple different factors. So, I mean, Summer I Turned Pretty, Heartstopper, a lot of them have been driven by the fact that they've also been adapted. But then there's also been, some books like Colleen Hoover. It leans into particular styles of reading that people are enjoying. And then suddenly everyone comes to the realization of, oh, hey, here's this amazing book. You should be checking it out and you should be checking it out. It's essentially an online book recommendation space, similar to, book clubs and word of mouth, that you should treat it in a similar way. And from that, it just grows and grows and grows. More people recommend a book to more people, and it just goes from there. I just love it that it's where tastes are being pushed and pulled. You often see so many interesting books in that BookTok space.
I was lucky enough to attend an industry event a couple of weeks ago and got a sneak peek into some of the books publishers are releasing in the lead up to Christmas.
Yes.
And I think it's fair to say that there's a lot to be excited about. Now, we talked about this a little bit before when we were recording for your podcast. And obviously my interest lies in Australian fiction. And I'm thinking specifically, of the new Jane Harper that we spoke about before, another one from Holly Ringland. We've got the new Chris Hammer book coming up.
Yes.
We've got the new Fiona McIntosh book coming, Sally Hepworth, Rachel Johns, Di Morrissey, just to rattle off a few of the top.
There's a lot.
There is a lot. So from your perspective, tell me about what upcoming book releases you're excited about.
Do we want to go just into fiction, or we can go further?
You can tell me whatever you think you're excited about.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll basically rattle off across a few different genres and let you know. And of course, we'll start off with Jane Harper. I mean, Exiles. Are we excited? Absolutely. I mean, she's been on such a fantastic run. She came out, hit the ground running with The Dry. And of course, if you haven't read The Dry, first of all, go and do that. And then, of course, go check out the film, which sees Eric Bana as Aaron Falk, which I think is a really good adaptation.
Me
having
too.
read the book and watched the movie. It was adapted so well, and it's so exciting to see that book do well. But yeah, of course she's done, Lost Man, The Survivors, and now this new book coming out. I'm super excited to see exactly what she's going to serve us up. And I deliberately don't want to know anything. I just want to have the book presented in front of me and I read. I haven't got much to say else about that except that I'm just hyped. I'm super excited about that. Staying with fiction, of course, and having mentioned, the BookTok space, Colleen Hoover is coming out with a new one, of course, international. This is a sequel to her book that is kind of going nuts on BookTok right now, which is It Ends With Us. She has a book called It Starts With Us, which is coming out as well, and that we're very excited for as kind of a big upcoming, exciting release as well. You mentioned Holly Ringland's brand new book. Of course, most listeners will know her from The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart, but her brand new book, the Seven Skins of Esther Wilding, looks really, really exciting. It's a fantastic new book. And then I also want to mention Diana Reid. So she has really generated a huge amount of buzz over the last, year or so. She released her debut book. Was it her debut? Love and Virtue? Yep. Yes, it was her debut. Thank you. Which, saw huge critical success and also won the ARBIA Book of the Year. It became a bestseller. And so she has a new book coming as well, which I'm super excited about, called Seeing Other People. I absolutely loved Love and Virtue when it came out. It was such a bright, exciting new voice. Of course, she was with Ultimo. They're a very new publishing house. But they're hitting the ground running with some of the titles that they're doing. To see her continue that with them and do this new book, I'm really excited to see how this book goes and see if it generates the same sort of buzz that Love and Virtue did. Kind of sticking with that, I'll quickly jump over to kids. There's a book involving a certain Craig Silvey. Called Runt, which I'm very excited about. He's teaming up with Sarah Acton as the illustrator, which I think is going to be a really exciting, beautiful kids book. I love Craig. Like, Honeybee wrecked me. I tell every book he's done has wrecked me. He's an absolutely incredible writer, and I think this is a natural fit for him to kind of transition into kids and YA. Also, of course, Rhys Carter has got a new book coming out. called A Girl Called Corpse and Elston Fright Tale. So she's from WA. She's a real up-and-comer, and there's been a lot of hype around this YA book. And, of course, the YA space is really kind of growing. This will really be a book that a lot of young people will really start to gravitate towards as a kind of really fun fantasy adventure. And then, last of all, we have Amelia Mellor in terms of kids and YA. So she came out with a book, The Grandest Bookshop in the World, I think in 2020, I believe, or 2019 or 2020. And that book, first of all, probably one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen.
Stunning.
Google right now, The Grandest Bookshop in the World. The cover is beautiful. But she has a new one coming out, a prequel, and it's called The Bookseller's Apprentice. I'm a sucker for books about books. So that one I think will be absolutely amazing, because that one also turned a lot of heads when it initially came out. Now I'll keep it nice and quick because I know that we have so many other books and stuff to talk about.
You could talk all day.
I know, I really could.
Yeah.
In the non-fiction space, Michelle Obama's releasing a new book.
I know.
The Light
So
We Carry.
exciting.
Yep, absolutely amazing. We've seen so much hype about that. Of course, have you read Becoming? Of course.
Loved it.
Amazing. Grace Tame has a new book coming out, The Ninth Life of a Diamond Miner. Now, Grace is obviously, Australian of the Year, really strong advocate for women who've been affected by sexual assault and sexual abuse. Become an incredibly divisive figure for God knows why, tackling challenges that we should all openly discuss and tackle together. She's incredibly brave. She's incredibly gutsy. And then finally, in terms of just lifestyle, for any of the cooks or listeners out, or kind of people out there who are looking for a new cookbook, I've got a book called Around the Table by Julia Bushtil Nishimura, which is a really fantastic book around kind of base ingredients. Julia, she has released a lot of really fantastic cookbooks before. Her focus is kind of on seasonal ingredients. So taking the season that you have and then crafting your recipes and stuff around that. Her first couple of books have done really, really well.
Fantastic. What terrific recommendations.
I have more. I had to stop myself.
I hear you, friend. You know, we could talk all day about books. But so, is there anything or any one of those books that you talked about now, or even books outside of that list that you spoke about, that are definitely going on your Christmas list?
Well, definitely Jane. Definitely Jane is going on my Christmas list.
Yeah.
The new Chris Hammer, which we touched on. I'm a sucker for Chris Hammer. Yeah. My first experience with him was actually his last book, Treasure in Dirt, and just so entertaining. My God. Another one which is actually coming out very soon, actually it might be out by the time this podcast is out, is the new Matthew Riley.
Oh, yes.
Called Blue. You know, a new book that he's doing. And like, I love his edge of the seat, non-stop action thriller sort of style of writing. He just doesn't let you breathe. And I reckon that'll be super exciting for any readers or listeners if you love a good action book.
Yeah, fantastic. I think those kinds of books really do well in the lead up to Christmas, because people want a good book to read during the holidays. You know, they want something that's going to be entertaining, something they can take down to the beach and just get back into straight away. Nick, as you probably well know, there are a lot of writers who listen into this podcast and may not be aware that Booktopia has its own publishing arm. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about this, how it started, what they're looking for, and if writers were interested, how they could submit.
Well, one of the great things that, we have with Booktopia is, of course, like homegrown Aussie store. And, of course, most people know us as a retailer, but we do really want to champion Aussie authors. It's something that we really are passionate about. And so we really wanted to kind of, off the back of that, start to produce books. So we've recently had the team from Brio Books come on board. So Brio Books are, a very, successful team. They've worked with some, huge names, including Adam Spencer, Dr. Carl, Robert Dussault, Joanne Fedler, Miranda Riwo. They've worked with a lot of people. And they've also had a couple of recent successes, since, coming in off the back of, of joining our team. They did a book with Beau Miles, who is a online filmmaker, YouTuber, and he had a book called The Backyard Adventurer, which is kind of the joys of exploring your own backyard. It's a beautiful book, and he's a very eloquent author. But even someone like Daniel Davis Wood, whose book At the Edge of the Solid World made the shortlist for the Miles Franklin, was the work of a member of the Brio Books team. So it's very exciting times, here at Booktopia, because we want to actually start, saying to authors and stuff, you can, we don't want to be just a retailer anymore. We want to actually expand and actually be a champion of authors as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so are Booktopia open to submissions at the moment?
You can head over to the Brio Books website. So there is a website that you can go and check out and have a look and see if there's, because obviously whichever publisher and imprint you go for, you want to make sure it's the right fit for the story that you want to tell. So, but yeah, to any people looking, I recommend having a look, checking it out, and seeing if it'll be the right fit for you.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that you are an author yourself,
Yes.
and you published your debut novel in 2019 called When Men Cry. So can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm a child of the industry as well. When Men Cry. It's the story of 4 guys set in early 2020 Sydney. Story starts with them going for a night out on the town, having a bit of fun. But as the night goes on, it becomes clear something is really off with one of the guys in this group. And it's the story, the rest of the story is essentially how the other 3 guys in this group of friends just struggle to ask the question, how are you? Are you okay? It's a story about how men talk to each other and, what they do say, what they don't say. It's not all a downer. There's lots of fun and banter in there as well, but essentially that's what it's about.
And what inspired you to write it?
Oh, God. So it kind of came from university. So I was at university around, 2013, 2014, and university is a weird, strange place. You're finding yourself, you're having your first couple of years out away from home. It's such a melting pot of people. You have people who are always, speaking. They're often, they're studying. You meet a whole bunch of people, and it can be a very tenuous time in your life. And interestingly, every single bloke at university would be struggling with some form of mental health issue, and none of them knew exactly how to process it or talk about it or deal with it in any way that was safe or manageable. So this kind of story emerged very, very slowly. It started as a short story originally, that I was doing in my creative writing classes. But people reacted well to these characters. They said these characters are really interesting, and then I was lucky enough to reach out and meet Lime Books, who I mentioned earlier, and the publisher there said, there's a full book in this, you should write a full story. And so over the space of a couple of years, this story grew and took shape.
Yeah, fantastic. So are you working on anything else at the moment?
Yes, so I do have 2 books in the works. It's very difficult doing it day to day because you're spending all of your day talking books and talking other stuff like that. But I am working on 2 more novels, standalone, but kind of part of I guess it's kind of like a trilogy of Australian stories, effectively, like separate Australian stories, but they all come under the same, the same kind of universe and world where it's kind of touching on younger people's experiences in 21st century Australia. The second book is going to be kind of set in the country, which is where I grew up. I'm originally from, Barrel. It's where I grew up, spent most of my life. And then the third book is going to be more of a adventure. Exactly where it's going, I don't know. But that's kind of part of the niche of it.
Indeed. It's all about the journey, right?
It is.
If listeners wanted to learn more about you and your work, where can they find you?
Well, you can head over to nickwasiliev.com. You can check out all of the stuff that I'm up to there. I also did a podcast of my own talking about the writing process and the actual process of actually getting a book, writing it, and then putting it towards publishers and then actually getting it out into the industry. So that I did call A Little Idea, which was just a little separate side project of my own. But in terms of day-to-day, you can check me out over at Tell Me What to Read, which is Booktopia's main podcast, as well as all of the other activities and stuff we get up to on Booktopia's social media, TikTok, Instagram. Wherever you find me, I'll be there hanging out and doing silly shenanigans with authors, and also talking about, exciting upcoming titles that we'll be doing with our publishing arm.
Nick, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you for joining me on Talking Aussie Books.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
That's a wrap, folks. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please drop me a line via my webpage at claudinetinellis.com, via Instagram, Facebook or Twitter. Alternatively, consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Google Podcasts. Until next time, happy reading.